Well, they brought it over, and the link directly for us, not just the good things that they're doing, and we're trying to learn more about how they're organising workers, making trade unions relevant to core groups of workers that we haven't spoken to for years, this story. So we're having those sorts of discussions anyway, but more importantly from a political perspective, this links directly into what we're trying to do with 2020, albeit one area of 2020's work, And they found a mechanism for outlawing 0 hours contracts in New Zealand. So we shouldn't be thinking about having to reinvent the wheel. Something's transposed, something's done, of course, there's always that. But if we've got
tell me how
examples,
you did it, and can we do the same?
All right. So I'm the national director of Unite. I look after the organising team. Joe's one of my senior organisers. He's been around for the last 12 years with Unite. And Alastair's a McDonald's delegate, but an executive member, and Victoria is a McDonald's delegate and president of Unite from the last conference. And so we've organised a lot of precarious type workers in the fast food industry, cinemas, the hotel industry, the casino, security guards, and call centres. And one of the things we've been doing this for the last about 12 years as a sort of organise the unorganised project. And what we discovered was that this casualisation, especially around hours and having no guaranteed hours, had become ubiquitous through a lot of industries. In fact, all of the industries that we were dealing with. Some, like the casino, might have a 8-hour minimum, but it doesn't make a lot of difference if it's an 8-hour minimum. If you go 8 or 0 to 40, it doesn't really matter. So the very minimal guaranteed hours. And this was true in the hotels, the casino, security. And they might work 60 hours a week in security, but they've still got nothing guaranteed. If they lose a contract, if the boss asks the guard to be taken off, then they got no hours next week until they come with their figures.
It's also a union organiser.
You can figure out what you're going to do. Anyway, I think that we were trying to estimate how many people we think were affected by these contracts, because more and more groups of workers were saying that there were, I think, hundreds of thousands, literally. Even the state sector was discovering that they had sort of broad groups of workers who were
city councils and so on.
Discovering broad groups of workers.
Sorry to interrupt you. So we've got figures here from the ONS, which produces the sort of national statistics, but we think it's much higher than that.
Yes. I read an academic.
Do you know what the comparison is between the UK and New Zealand as to whether it's
I read quite an academic before I came here, quite an academic paper on your 0 hour stuff, and it appears to be quite narrowly, but in terms of the estimates for the numbers, quite narrow, right? So because it's almost guaranteed that every fast food company is going to be operating on this basis. That half of retail, and the key issue, and even if they might be, as I say, it might be some guarantees involved. The key issue. So that it appeared to be that in the UK they were trying, the very narrow definition thing was trying to do it that you're sitting at home waiting for a phone call, which I don't think that's necessarily, which is one way, obviously one way of measuring. So we've got 3 types of agreements. So now we've got a genuinely casual agreement, but you can't, the courts have ruled that you can't be put on a roster as soon as you're put on a, which is a good ruling, as soon as you're put on a roster you cease to be a casual worker. So there is a genuine casual agreement, which should technically be basically a day. You do get rung up and you come in and you work a day, and there is a fixed term. You can have a fixed term agreement, and that should be for whatever, even if it's a few days or a few weeks or a few months. But the law says there must be a genuine reason why it's fixed term, and that reason must be specified in the agreement. All workers must have a written agreement by law. And so that if you've got a fixed term agreement, specify the reason why and what date it ends and why it ends on that date. It's got to have a reason for that.
So if you're a regular employee in reality working.
Then we often go into.
There's no rationale for you to have fixed term agreements.
No.
You've got fixed hours of opening, you've got fixed books, you know where it is.
But in part, maybe in part, because you have this quite thing that there's quite that the courts have defined the casual a bit more narrowly in terms of being put on a roster, and the thing that fixed in these big companies, I think, did move to the 0 hour, essentially having a 0 hours regime, because so they treated you as regularly employed, and you had obligations, obviously, to work when asked. You could say that I can't work on a Thursday or Friday. You could have certain availability provisions, and so on. But within your availability, you must work. But you're not guaranteed any hours. And it's a tool to just use and abuse people to manage and not have any processes for disciplinaries or corrective behaviour. You just cut your hours. The government tended to use some of this English language. It was saying, "Oh, we will get rid of the worst abuses of 0 hours contracts. We will, we will have. You have to be, if you're waiting at home, to be called up. I can't. The minister was sort of making things up as he went, and you shouldn't be sent home, and the worst abuses. We will deal with the worst abuses, but he kept digging holes for himself during this process, because our campaign in the fast food industry, we've had collective agreements in the fast food industry for a decade, but hadn't been able to fix this issue. So we launched a big campaign, naming and shaming, naming the unnamed. What's it called? Ex-nomination, does it?
So do you organise in McDonald's?
Yes. We've had a collective agreement with Burger King, KFC, Pizza Hut, Starbucks, Carl's Jr., Wendy's.
We're both delegates at McDonald's.
Yeah,
Right.
so and a collective agreement. And we have a collective agreement, yes. And it's funny, but it's almost, and we have collective agreements with a minority of staff. You can't completely voluntary unionism. You cannot force anyone to join a union or a collective agreement, and you can resign at any time. Right? So, and high turnover industry is a problem. Right? So we labelled it as 0 hour contracts. In the media, it was immediately on side, and I think because of the widespread nature of it, I use another example where the Restaurant Association, which is all of the main restaurant chains and associations and stuff, but they sent one out for a very small chain of restaurants. It was their standard agreement, and it just said you will be available for 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and work when rostered. Right? So the bosses had just come to believe that they could do, they didn't need to specify hours, and so that's why I played. So, but because it was a bullshit law, the proposed law was bullshit. It wouldn't have outlawed 0 hour contracts. At most, it would have required some form of compensation for having a 0 hour contract. So that the draft law, if you were on a 0 hour contract, there must be some compensation. Just compensation, not reasonable compensation, no, just compensation for being available. Some form negotiated between the parties. We said that was more like a legalisation rather than an abolition of 0 hour contracts. And but the government is short of a majority by about 3 votes or something in Parliament on its own, and the support parties it was counting on to put this through. So it needs 2 of its 3 support parties on board. It needs there's United Future, which has one member of Parliament, and it's a bit centrist. There's a
Maori Party.
Maori Party, which has three, I think, members of Parliament, and an ACT Party, which is a right-wing libertarian one, which has 1 member of Parliament. The Maori Party was the first to withdraw support, for the bill, and then United Future withdrew support for the bill. So the ACT Party wasn't enough on its own to get. this created a legislative problem. They didn't want to divide the bill, or they didn't want to pull the 0
Because
hours.
there were other things in it,
Yes,
weren't there, around
yes.
Health and
extended
safety.
maternity
Yes,
leave
yes,
and
in
sort of
particular,
thing.
that was the
Yeah.
one that caught them, because that had an
Yeah.
April 1st start date for the payments, and they had to get that through. So in the end, and they were still saying no, and being accused of legalising 0 hour contract, they go, no, it's not, no, we're not. And in the end, they actually went to the Labour Party, and the guy who had worked with us, help me, Joseph, Ian Lees Galloway, who's the sort of Labour spokesperson. You should talk to Ian. A good person.
A good guy. Stayed all day with us.
He's
Just
actually-
didn't go
he's-
after the speech.
He's been fantastic. He's come to our all day at our Unite delegate conferences, and normally people come in and say, leave, but he was hanging around all day, joining us on picket lines, and he's been good. It paid off, because they had to go to him and the Green Party to a lesser extent, but to negotiate the thing. And so he was in constant contact with us about what will work and what won't work, and this was this was a surprise. We weren't anticipating this, and what we could get away with, what we thought we could get away with. So in the end, there's sort of three important principles. There's some secondary stuff, but three important principles. One, the law must give you hours. If there are hours, if they're agreed, they must be specified and written down in the agreement, and you must. There's got to be a good reason not to, right? So the second part, there's got to, if you want people to be available in addition to the guaranteed hours, you've got to have a good reason for that, whatever that might be. It's not specified. You've got to have a reason for those hours.
And a good reason for them not being guaranteed hours.
Yes, a good reason not to be guaranteed. Yes, and you must pay what's dubbed reasonable, instead of just compensation, reasonable compensation. So it leaves it open to the courts to determine what's reasonable. Theoretically,
So what's the reasonable compensation for? So if you
for
don't-
being available.
For big, right, okay.
24/7,
Being available for any additional
365
guaranteed
days.
hours.
Right.
So no one will have a 0 hours agreement. There will always be a certain number of guaranteed hours, and there will be some hours that may not be guaranteed, but you can receive reasonable compensation for whatever that is, for being available.
When you're asked to work them on.
Yeah, when you're there's got to be some
So will that
form
be
of
convenience
compensation.
payment?
Yes.
What that's written into
So we
the
don't know
law.
what that's going to
So,
be.
yeah.
We'll have a lot of fun. Because everybody's breaking the law now.
Yes. Now, I think everyone was caught on the hop. So every negotiation we've had since then, the companies are bringing lawyers along, like they don't know. Lawyers are going. I've been studying the new health and safety, because that was a big thing. We had a big new health after 29 people killed in a mine. We had a big health and safety rewrite of the law. And it's actually not too bad particularly being done under a Tory government. They exempted all their farmer friends from having elected representatives or something, but it's got elected representatives. And anyway, but all of the corporate people have been studying this act. And the lawyer comes along and goes, "I think I should have been paying more attention to this law change," but I don't think anyone would have been quite anticipated what happened. So that was agreed. There's some other stuff about being compensated for being sent if you're sent home from a shift or a shift is cancelled as well. There's some other stuff about exclusivity clauses and stuff, but that's all secondary. We never took much notice of it, because we'd got rid of that in our industries anyway. Things like people being sent home, or actually we do have one agreement which says you're not allowed to work for another fast food company, but I think that will have to go. But
So the actual practical implications of implementing this now are...
Yes. So now two of the main chain, the Burger King chain and the Restaurant Brands chain. Restaurant Brands is owned by a New Zealand share listed company. and it owns KFC, Pizza Hut, Starbucks, and Carl's Jr. Those sort of 4 different brands. They're going to fix shifts, guaranteed hours and fixed shifts, which was our preference anyway.
Absolutely.
We negotiated in our, as a first step with the fast food companies when we campaigned to get agreements in the fast food companies, and what we agreed to was 80% of the hours worked would be from your previous 3 months would be guaranteed going forward. We thought people would ultimately be able to build that up. There's probably ways that, anyway. But it was seen as a sort of first step in this thing. But it looks like, but we haven't got, McDonald's is the most committed, partly because they're more to a more flexible sort of regime. So we shall see. But that restaurant brands is shifts, fixed hours, and Burger King. And so that's our first. They've just sort of we surrendered.
Time's up. Time's up. Well, this form of exploitation. Time's up for now.
So it will be interesting to see what could. I think that there was a meeting scheduled with McDonald's, but I can't remember whether it's when I get back or while I'm away. But anyway, the National Secretary.
I should know this, but if you have an employment dispute in New Zealand, do you use the normal civil courts or do you have separate?
No, we have a employment relations authority, which has sort of appointed members who aren't judges, but they might be lawyers or union officials. So the employment relations authority, and it's a sit round table type, sort of. They ask lots of questions and interrogative sort of thing, right? And make a decision. But then there is if you can appeal from there to the employment court, and specialist employment court judges, and they haven't been too bad in recent years on a range of issues.
So do you have designated employment law judges?
Yes, employment court judges.
You have employment court judges that just sit in employment matters?
Only, yes.
That's interesting.
Specialists, yes.
So a bit like our employment appeal tribunals.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds dead easy. So.
There you go, there's a plan. We'll see you in 2020.
Well, we've got a copy of it.
To Jeremy, and I'll say, get it sorted.
Well, we've
Roger,
got the draft, we've got the amendment, of course.
Yeah, I can send you an electronic copy.
That
We'll send it
It's got
electronically
nice
anyway.
scribbly notes on it.
That's fine, brilliant, thank you.
Yeah, this was a huge. This is the first time really that we've seen a breakthrough on 0 hours. But this is important because a lot of people say you can't find a mechanism for dealing with it.
And the other thing is, these are global companies, which if they know,
absolutely.
or if they can make it, you can make it work in New
Yep.
Zealand, then it might start to change behaviour and,
Well,
sort of
we
dogma over
were
here, which
trying,
is that
yeah, I know,
companies say
because
they won't do it.
they were coming to us saying, well, what do you want? And we were going,
Everything.
guaranteed hours.
Everything
You
and-